The palace is facing a nightmare that nobody wants to say out loud, not because it is complicated, not because there is no solution, but because the solution is sitting in plain sight while Prince Harry appears determined to ignore it. And that is exactly why this latest royal drama has exploded into something far bigger than a simple family disagreement. Because according to explosive claims being discussed this week, King Charles could see Archie and Lilibet tomorrow if Harry truly wanted it to happen. The arrangements could be made privately. The security could be guaranteed. The media could be completely shut out. Yet somehow, despite all of that, the meeting still isn't happening. So the question hanging over this entire saga is becoming impossible to ignore. If security is no longer the obstacle, then what is? For years, Harry has insisted that security concerns prevent him from bringing his children to Britain. It has been presented as the central issue, the defining barrier, the one condition standing between a grandfather and his grandchildren. But then a practical alternative emerged this week, and suddenly the entire narrative started to wobble. Because the proposed solution was remarkably simple. Harry could travel by private jet directly to Scotland. No crowded airports, no public appearances, no paparazzi chaos, no public itinerary. From there, a short protected drive to Balmoral, one of the most secure private estates in Britain, a place surrounded by royal security, private staff, protected perimeters, and thousands upon thousands of acres of controlled land. In other words, exactly the kind of environment that would remove virtually every safety concern being publicly discussed. And yet the reaction was not relief. It was silence. That silence is what has people talking. Because if the security problem has a solution, then why is nobody embracing it? The deeper observers look, the stranger the situation appears. Balmoral is not some public tourist attraction. It is a royal fortress wrapped inside breathtaking Scottish countryside. Once inside its boundaries, Archie and Lilibet would arguably be safer than almost anywhere else Harry regularly visits. There would be no photographers waiting outside gates, no public exposure, no need for taxpayer-funded police escorts throughout cities, just a grandfather spending time with grandchildren he barely knows. And that uncomfortable fact changes everything. Because the moment a workable solution exists, the argument stops being about whether something can happen and starts becoming about whether someone actually wants it to happen.
Doesn't even make sense. And this is again where Harry thinks just because he's stupid that the rest of the world is stupid and is going to swallow total lies. Because think about this for 1 second. If Harry really cared about the king and really wanted to allow the king to have a meeting with his 2 grandchildren who he has zero relationship with, then it's so simple, P. Diner, what he could do. And I actually believe this could be done in total secrecy as well, without the press needing to know at all. Harry could fly. I mean, he flies by private jet all the time. The time. And I think while a lot of his celebrity friends have decided not to allow them to use private jets in recent months and years because they felt used and they don't want to be part of the whole circus. I honestly believe, P. Diner, and I'm pretty confident of this knowing Elton John a little bit, that if Harry called Elton John and said the only way that I can get the children to see the king is with the private jet, I'm pretty sure Elton, P. Diner, Harry could fly by private jet into Scotland directly. I'm sure the king would happily provide appropriate security for the drive from the airport to Balmoral. Now, we know that drive is only about 90 minutes, and I'm pretty sure the king would happily arrange that. Within the royal estate, P. Diner,
yes, right,
he is completely protected. By the security, and they could have a private...
When the discussion resumes, the focus becomes even more explosive. The claim now being made is that this entire battle was never truly about a visit. It was about a precedent, a legal and political precedent that could stretch far beyond King Charles's reign. According to reports, Harry's objective is not merely protection for one trip. It is official recognition that he deserves taxpayer-funded security whenever he visits Britain, not temporarily. Permanently, that changes the stakes dramatically, because a visit can end after a weekend. A precedent can last for decades. And suddenly every headline, every briefing, every negotiation begins looking different. Reports circulating this week suggest Harry has allegedly communicated that he will not bring the children unless government-funded security is guaranteed. If that guarantee does not arrive, he may visit alone. On the surface, it sounds straightforward. But beneath that statement lies an uncomfortable reality. The children become the center of the negotiation. Their presence becomes leverage. Their absence becomes pressure. And that is where criticism has become increasingly fierce. Because once children become connected to strategic demands, people start asking questions nobody wants to answer. Are they being protected? Or are they being used? The distinction matters a lot. Critics argue that if seeing King Charles were the true priority, the Balmoral option solves the problem immediately. The estate exists, the security exists, the invitation appears to exist, yet the visit does not, which means the real battle may be taking place somewhere else entirely, behind closed doors, inside legal arguments, inside negotiations with government officials, inside a fight over future status and future privileges. And if that is true, then the children have become symbols in a much larger war.
And of course, P. Diner, it is all because Prince Harry is due in the country next month. He still has no confirmation from the Home Office that he's going to get the taxpayer-funded security. Good. He still has no confirmation from King Charles that Harry will meet him. Good. Because remember, what remains so central to all of this is the threat, which is that if I don't get that, and he said this again, by the way, to the New York Post on page 6 this week, if I don't get that, then I'm not going to come with the children. I'll come on my own.
As the debate intensified, commentators began speaking with unusual bluntness. Some accused Harry of turning family relationships into bargaining tools. Others expressed sympathy for Archie and Lilibet, arguing they are caught in circumstances they neither created nor understand. The language became harsher, the frustration became louder, and the core accusation remained the same. The children appear to be trapped between competing objectives. The timing makes everything even more emotional. King Charles is no longer a young man. The years ahead are uncertain. Every missed summer matters. Every missed holiday matters. Every missed family memory matters. That reality gives this entire story a sense of urgency that cannot be ignored. Because unlike legal disputes, childhood does not pause while negotiations continue. Children keep growing. Relationships either develop or disappear. Time keeps moving forward. And that is precisely why the controversy keeps getting bigger. The public is no longer just watching a dispute about security. They are watching a race against time, a grandfather waiting, a father negotiating, children caught in the middle, and a solution sitting quietly in Scotland that seems almost too obvious to ignore. Yet somehow, despite all of that, the distance between Balmoral and California still feels impossible to cross. What makes this situation even more explosive is that every new development seems to reveal a contradiction hiding underneath the previous one. The public message remains focused on security, but critics keep pointing toward a reality that appears increasingly difficult to explain away. If private travel is available, if royal protection is available, if Balmoral itself offers one of the most secure environments in the country, then why does the conversation keep returning to government guarantees? Why does every road somehow lead back to the same demand? The answer, according to growing speculation, is because the destination was never Scotland. The destination was always the precedent.
That it is completely inappropriate and unacceptable, and the king simply will not have it, and the royal families. But the thing I think I find most egregious, P. Diner, is the fact that Harry is either so stupid or so driven by hatred and bitterness that he doesn't understand that this cannot be a public negotiation. And the more he publicly negotiates, the more I think the king, and I pray and hope this is the case, has just decided to wash his hands of the whole thing.
Yeah, he has to.
That is where the strategy becomes impossible to ignore. Every briefing follows a remarkably familiar pattern. There is always an expression of sadness. There is always a desire for reconciliation. There is always a statement about wanting the children to know their grandfather. But attached to every emotional appeal is the same condition: security first, everything else second. And each time that condition appears, critics argue that the pressure on King Charles quietly increases, because refusing security can then be framed as refusing family unity. Refusing the demand can be portrayed as refusing grandchildren. It creates a situation where every decision carries consequences and every headline places the palace under scrutiny. Then the pressure escalates further.
It's just something that, Harry, at the end of the day, is going to be the one regretting every decision. Once again, using your children as a prop, using them, to get what you want. And, the king can't really go in this back and forth with Harry about this, because He's got work to do. He's got his health to focus on. Seeing your grandchildren should just be a natural thing. There should not be any negotiations around seeing your grandchildren. How absurd is that? And at the end of all of this, Dan, Harry is going to regret it so much, because you do not use your children as pawns to get what you want. Make it about your children seeing their grandfather. Make it about them having the experience of knowing your father, the king, before, he passes on. That's what it should be about. Why is Harry making like all these games around his children, trying to be this, man that gets what he wants all the time, and using your children to do it? It's so wrong and disgusting. I don't even know. Harry is just a broken man, Dan. He is broken in a big way. And I feel sorry for those children. I really do, because they're the ones who are going to be the ones losing out and not having these experiences while they're young, because that's when it's meaningful. Because when you get older, you reminisce about when you were young and when you did that. These children are not going to have that with their cousins, and it's all Harry and Meghan's fault. They're the reason.
Suddenly, the focus shifts from security itself to what security represents. If official protection is granted now, what happens later? What happens when Prince William eventually becomes king? What happens when future visits occur? What happens when questions emerge about Meghan, the children, future appearances, future engagements, and future privileges? Critics argue that one decision today could echo for decades, and that possibility is precisely why palace observers believe King Charles cannot simply wave a hand and make the issue disappear. The implications stretch far beyond one family reunion. At the same time, another layer of intrigue keeps emerging from behind the scenes. Some commentators have suggested that there may be competing interests operating within the Sussex household itself. The theory goes something like this: a visit without Meghan creates one set of problems, while a visit with Meghan creates another. One scenario risks reconnecting Harry independently with his family. The other risks placing Meghan back into an environment she reportedly has little desire to revisit. Whether those theories are accurate or not, they continue fueling speculation because they offer explanations for why a seemingly simple solution remains untouched. And meanwhile, the clock keeps ticking. That is the detail that keeps returning like a shadow hanging over the entire story. Every legal argument can continue indefinitely. Every negotiation can drag on for years. Every public dispute can generate endless headlines. But time refuses to cooperate. Time moves forward regardless of strategy, regardless of leverage, regardless of negotiations. King Charles is getting older. The children are getting older. Opportunities that exist today may not exist tomorrow. That reality transforms this from a political dispute into something far more emotional. Because one day, Archie and Lilibet will be old enough to ask questions. They will ask why years passed without visits. They will ask why opportunities disappeared. They will ask why relationships never formed. And perhaps most importantly, they will ask whether those lost years were unavoidable or whether they were choices. That is the uncomfortable question sitting at the center of this entire saga. Because according to critics, the opportunity exists right now. A private jet, a secure estate, a waiting grandfather, no cameras, no public spectacle, no controversy, just family. Yet the meeting remains out of reach. And that is why this story refuses to disappear. Because beneath every legal filing, every media briefing, every security demand, and every royal headline sits a much simpler issue. A grandfather wants to see his grandchildren. A father insists conditions must be met first. A family remains divided. And somewhere between those competing priorities, childhood continues slipping away one season at a time. The most unsettling part is that nobody knows how this ends. Maybe a compromise appears tomorrow. Maybe negotiations finally break through. Or maybe the standoff continues until the opportunity itself disappears forever. But if that happens, if the window eventually closes, the debate will no longer be about security, precedent, or palace politics. It will be about something far more painful. It will be about time that can never be recovered, memories that were never created, and relationships that existed only as possibilities. And as this royal drama continues unfolding behind palace walls and California gates, one question keeps growing louder than all the others when the dust finally settles. Will anyone decide that winning the argument was worth losing the years?